As soon as you walk through the doors, like most of their clothes are off. There's just naked people everywhere. I was very sexually aware and interested very young. I used it for everything. I used it to control people. I used it to make myself feel good about myself. I used it to escape. I used it to hurt myself. I used sex for everything you can possibly imagine. Everybody get naked, let's do some drugs, and let's have sex.
今天将要讲述的这个故事有点不同了，它在我的英文频道上线之初引起了很大的争议，我随后紧急发布了一个声明，而在这之后，这个故事成了整个英文世界开放式关系类访谈中被浏览次数最多的视频之一。今天的这个故事不仅仅是猎奇，我们的主人公 Kate 将跟我一起就开放式关系这个话题，从成长、亲密关系以及背后的思考，以对谈的形式呈现给大家。相信这个故事开始后的30秒，很多人已经感受到了。在此要提醒大家，这个故事可能不符合多数人的道德标准，可能会被这个话题所冒犯到的观众，请跳过这一期内容。我们的这个频道目标是寻找来自不同背景的引人入胜的故事，各种种族、信仰以及生活方式，同时它也是一个公正、无偏见的开放对话平台。这个平台将继续记录和探索被主流媒体经常忽略的少数群体的真实故事。我们开始今天的故事。
Was born in London, Ontario, and my parents, we lived there for till I was about 8, and then we moved to Forest, Sarnia area, which is near Grand Bend. Both my parents are teachers. They're both very strict. Well, they were at that time very strict Catholics. It was myself and my 2 younger brothers. We moved a couple of times, but mainly stayed in that Sarnia area. Grew up on the beach. It was a beautiful area. My childhood was very, really good, very normal, very typical. You know, both parents in the house. When I was younger, it definitely seemed really great. My brothers and I got along as much as brothers and sisters get along. We had a lot of fun. We had a big family. So my dad's from a big family, and my mom also has a big family. So I was always very close with all my cousins, and we spent lots of time at cottages or the grandparents' pool, and they were sort of an extended brother and sisters. We were together that much. But yeah, everything was, and my mom taught at the school I went to, which was great until I started to get older and a little more rebellious. And then especially when it came to high school, and my dad was teaching at the local high school, a different one than I went to. But we went to church every Sunday. There was a lot of guilt, a lot of this is the way, there was one way to act, and there was a right way and there was a wrong way to do things. And as I got older and started to really fight against those reins, I think because they were so tight, I might have fought even a little harder. There ended up being a lot of complications, and my teenage years were not wonderful with my parents, and it's taken many years to come to a place where we can spend time together and just respect each other for who we are and be compassionate to each other for who we are, and just allow that to be a very kind of surface relationship. I sometimes go back and forth between, was it that I started rebelling? My dad became very abusive towards me, physically abusive. But from what it's all kind of fuzzy, right? Things come up and they go. I had basically not repressed it, because I repressed the emotional response to it for a long time until fairly recently. But, when I was very sexually aware and interested very young, and was attracting the attention of lots of people. And I think that really stressed and scared from what he saw. I don't know what he saw, but that's what he saw. I lost my virginity in grade 8. And then when I went to high school, my first day of high school, I was so excited to have some sort of freedom. And so I was dropped acid on my first day of high school. It was the first drug I'd ever done, and partied with everybody and got in with all the fun people, or the wrong crowd, whatever, but all the people that were having the most fun, and just sort of went from there. I always maintained straight A's. I was an honor roll student. All the teachers loved me. I was able to keep that that balance for myself, and kept thinking to my parents, you know, why can't you just let me have some freedom here? Because look at how great I'm doing in everything else. I'm on the debate team, for crying out loud, right? But yeah, I'm partying my arse off the rest of the time. And my family, there was a lot of pressure. I was the firstborn of like 16 grandkids. Firstborn on both sides, you know, of another 16 grandkids, and I was the golden child, and I was told I was going, you know, oh, she's so pretty, she's going to, you know, be with the captain of the football team, and she's going to be the anchor for CNN, and all this pressure constantly was that she has to maintain these really good grades, be a writer, make all of those things happen. So even though I liked to party, I knew there was a line that I couldn't cross. So, and I was afraid of drugs that would be addictive, because I also knew that, especially as I started to have, you know, a lot of sex with random people, and felt a lot of shame, and then my dad's beating the crap out of me on a regular basis, and my mom is being a raving lunatic, blaming it on me, and all these things, that I was escaping with drugs a lot and partying, and I knew that if I went too far, I'd have a problem. So I was very sexually active from a very young age, had a very, very, very high libido. Like I just always wanted to have sex. I love having sex. It's wonderful. It's I used it for everything. I used it to control people. I used it to make myself feel good about myself. I used it because it feels good. I used it to escape. I used it to hurt myself. I used sex for everything you can possibly imagine. But I also had that, like, I love the hunt. I love that first moment. I love that, oh my gosh, you're gonna do this. And I always was into that from a very young age. So I lost my virginity at like grade 8. Lost it. I handed it. It's not like somebody stole it from me. I happily gave it away in grade 8, and then continued from then on. And I had multiple sexual partners all through high school. The town that I come from, I don't talk to anybody there anymore, but they often, I'll talk to the odd person. They're like, I was at the bar the other night, and somebody's like, what the hell happened to Kate Waugh? Like, do you remember that night? You know, threesomes and orgies and all that kind of stuff. I was like, everybody get naked, let's do some drugs, and let's have sex. So that was how I lived. Then I had a terrible first marriage, was desperate to have children, married my next marriage was a very, very safe, vanilla, lovely human being. And I lived under that thumb for a long time. And then when I couldn't take it anymore and we divorced, I went back to being as wild as humanly possible, which is then when I learned about all these wonderful sex clubs out there. And so I was going to Oasis and X in Mississauga and going to those kinds of places, and just in my glory, the more attention, the more people, the more anything. And when I'm having sex, I'm very lost in it. I give myself completely to that. And I've studied Tantra since, so I know how to harness it and what that is and why that happens for me. But I orgasm very easily and often, and it's wonderful. Like, why wouldn't you want to do that all the time? So then, once I started going to the sex clubs, I met a couple that they run and hold orgies and sex parties all the time. And we became very close, and so then I go to their parties, mainly their parties. I get invited now to some private events because I'm a star. Yeah.
Okay. What is the first time you went to those kind of parties? Club?
The first time I went was to Oasis, and was with a boyfriend at the time, and he said, have you ever, you're a freak, have you ever been to this club? And I was like, no, this sounds amazing.
Tell me the detail about the first time.
Okay, so we walk in, and as soon as you walk in, you go down these deep, dark, grimy stairs, which is amazing, and then you pay your $100, sign all your waivers, and you walk in, and as soon as you walk through the doors, even the people taking your waivers are just in lingerie, or, most of their clothes are off. As soon as you get into the doors, there's just naked people everywhere having some drinks, dancing, and there's people in lingerie and outfits and all these things. Then we turn, we walk up the stairs to where the locker room is. So then, yeah, we take our clothes off and off we go into, it's a house basically, right, with a series of rooms. And in each room there's people having sex. And I just was like a kid in a candy store. And the first room we go into, it's set up like a dungeon. And there's one person doing a shibari show in the corner. Somebody else is strapped to something being whipped, you know. There's in the next room adjacent, there's a whole audience of people and they're watching an instructional sex show from somebody else. And then every other room is like a theme room, either like a cut open VW bus that you can have sex in, or there's just, you know, chairs in a room so you're all having sex, and there's just walls of condoms and lube and drinks and people walking around making sure that everybody's wearing a condom. Okay. Then there's a pool, rooftop pool, and I was in there with my partner and we're making out and we're looking at everything, and I'm like, I can't wait to get into everything else. And this beautiful, like, 22-year-old Brazilian woman walks into the pool and comes over to us, and I was just in heaven. I love women as much as I love men. And so then we ended up, I think we just ended up all kissing and touching each other and fondling each other, and then you stop. But what I like about it is you always just stop and you talk for a while. So, hey, where are you from? You know, what are you up to? And what brings you here tonight? And she had a gay friend who wanted to come in. Generally, they don't let gay men in. So she was like, I had to sort of sneak him in, and I wanted him to come. But this is my one night of freedom before I'm settling down with somebody. And so we just spent the rest of the night with her in every room, and then other people would join in, and it was just wonderful. Each one is different. So Oasis, and I don't go to Oasis anymore because I find it's a lot, we call them tourists, so a lot of people it's their first time in somewhere, so they're kind of just watching, they're a little...
You don't like newbies.
We don't like newbies. Okay. Yeah. You know why? There's nothing wrong with newbies. I just don't have a lot of time for this kind of play in my life. So when I have it, I look for pros. When I go to a party, we spend the first hours just like the house parties we go to. You spend the first several hours talking and getting to know each other. It's always great if there's some kind of sex show people are putting on. There'll be some professional shibari people in. We have a chef that comes that does tinctures for, getting people into an elevated mood. Then you do your then we do a consent talk about consent and what that means and how things will be playing out. If somebody hosting always says, if anybody's on any hard drugs, I need to know. I don't care, but I need to know what people are on in case anything happens. And then off you go. And then generally people start to break off. And there's always a big room set up in all the sex clubs. There's a big room for if you want to have a big sex orgy pile up. Then there's smaller rooms, private rooms. One of my favorite times was I was at this club called The X, and the front of The X is like a dance club. So we're out there dancing. There's this woman on the stripper pole. She's amazing. My partner's like, oh my gosh, I want her. Like, get her for me, because women will come for me. Women will come for women, right? And they feel more comfortable. So I was like, I'm really interested in spending some time with you. Can we go back to the back? And she's like, I have a guy here. And I was like, bring them all. I don't care. Let's go. And we go into the back and immediately get our clothes off. And as we're getting our clothes off, I'm chatting with some of the women in the room. And I said, I've never squirted before. I've always wanted to be a squirter. And they're like, oh, lay down in the change room. We'll teach you how to do it. And we had this whole big session where they were teaching me how to do it. And then by the time I get out there, of course, now I'm like, it just becomes so primal for me, and I get so lost in it. And I'm just everything... I don't know, everything it just becomes about pleasure, like just hedonism, just pure hedonism and bodies and the smells and the feeling and the sounds. Like, I'm just into the whole thing completely. So the woman that was been teaching me how to squirt, she comes onto this bed. My partner is having sex now with the stripper that he wanted to be with, and she's, do I just be really graphic?
自我们的频道开播以来，收到了很多华人观众的来信，都表示说也想分享自己的故事。今天借这个机会，我正式的邀请你来我的工作室，分享你的故事。无论你有个动人的故事、伤心的故事、恐怖的故事，又或者你有一颗有趣的灵魂。 即便摘掉一切能代表你的标签，你依然是一个与众不同的人。写信给我吧，唯一的要求需要你自我录制一份不低于15秒的自我介绍。如果我对你的故事感兴趣，我会跟你联系。目前录制只能发生在多伦多，让我们开始吧。我在多伦多等你，我们下一期见。